I think Michael would have helped if people just said what they wanted to say.
Oh, so not chronological.
Yeah, because then the pressure's on and
Oh,
then you
okay.
feel pressure.
Thank you for that. We'll go with whoever objects, right?
Yeah, it's free flow.
Okay, free flow.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi.
We're trying to get
Michael's gonna
focus. The teacher part of me is ever present. So the things that I remember most about her was how she was tough. I'm almost 3 years older, and when we were wrestling, she could get me down, and I said, I can't have this, and I had to use all my strength to get her off.
Okay, everybody, you can sit here.
When she was about 9 or 10, she bet my dad $5 at the time, 1962, that she could hold her arms out for an hour. An hour. Right after 3 minutes. She did it. Well, let's move on to somebody else.
Keep your purse off the floor, it's bad luck.
I like it to start, and it'll motivate other people, because this will be so small. When I met Laura in '87-ish, she was, I'd say, about half as lazy as she was before she had health issues, because, you know, some people just steadily get lazy. Well, when the Blue Line started, we went down and checked out the Blue Line, that part streetcar, part elevated, a little tiny bit of subway train. And when the Red Line was extended to the valley, she went with me and Sharon, and we checked out the Red Line. But by the time they did the Gold Line that goes, okay, it used to just be little, and then they made, well, by the time they extended it into East LA, I couldn't persuade her to check it out. But she was active before that, and we got around and checked out those trains. And I can't remember the name of her friend that we went on the Blue Line with. That'll give someone an idea for something more interesting.
Okay, I have an idea. Okay, it must have been about 25 or 30 years ago, I said, you know, Laura, you really need to get physical, so come on over. So I started giving her exercises, because I was a trained dancer, and after 5 minutes, she says, forget this. She went to the bedroom and went to sleep, you know. So it was very difficult to motivate her to do anything physical. So that's my own story.
When I met her, she was willing to do a lot more when I met her, 87-ish.
Well, in 1995, I went through a breakup and a 5-year relationship, and I was hanging out with Aaron. Just met Aaron and just started hanging out with him. And one Friday night, he said to me, "Do you want to meet somebody interesting?" And we went over to Laura's house, and you know what? Aaron was right. She was interesting. My back was bothering me that day. She walked on my back. The first time she ever met me, she walked on my back. I loved her. She was kind of heavy set and had really small feet, so she could really get into my back and really give it a good massage with just a couple of stomps. And I just loved her apartment. I don't know why. I fell in love with her apartment. It just seemed from a different era and a different time, where you could walk downstairs and go to 5 different restaurants, and it just seemed to fit her. She was where the action was, and she liked it.
And that scary elevator.
Yeah, well, that elevator was over 100 years old, and probably some of the parts are still over 100 years old. She had quite an interesting home life when I met her, and until the day she had to leave that place. It was such a cute little place. There's only one real sad story I got from that, and that's I hesitate to mention it, but I have to. That she had a kitty cat named Sophia that made it out the window once and fell five stories.
Oh, that was me.
Oh, it was, I'm sorry, it wasn't, anyway, it was such a sad moment, and there was nothing I could do 30 miles away in the valley. There's just nothing I could do to make it better.
I was
But-
with her that night.
You were.
It was my dog that
That motivated the cat to jump?
motivated. She was dog sitting. She was my dog sitter.
Oh dear.
And on this certain day, she did not put the cat in the bathroom because she thought they would all get along.
Oh.
So the dog startled the cat, and the cat went to the windowsill that Sharon had mentioned months before. You need to put a lock on that windowsill because the screen is not locked. And the cat got scared, went to the windowsill and leaned against the screen and fell 5 stories down. She called me screaming because I had just left her house
Oh.
to go to Silver Lake Fair because she lived near Sunset Boulevard. And rushed back. We went to the bottom of the building. We found the cat. It was meowing horribly. And we went to the 24-hour vet clinic in West Hollywood, and it was going to cost over $3,000. So, and there was no guarantee that the cat would live. So that's also a memory I have. Back.
I'm sorry I had to bring it up, but it's
Can I
one of
just
those
throw in one main thing about Laura? The fact that she was so stubborn is because she didn't want anything to change around.
And she thought they would all get along, and she was like from love.
Yeah, that's
it was
another
like, it was
thing.
like a sign of love that she thought, oh, they all were so loving, and just to kind of think it through.
That, for that particular, I guess I was generalizing for her personality in general.
Yeah.
And you know, that mental illness that she had showed itself that way. She needed things so she could handle them. Anything new was overwhelming. And so you get stubborn Laura.
And I don't think you have to be old or young. I think that's just individual. Some people, you know, it's just, I say, my circuits are overloaded today, you know. And it's true with everybody. We have too much. There's too much for us to think of. So Laura was smart. She keep it simple and she can handle it.
I have thousands and thousands of memories of Laura because Laura.
Could you stand up because I can't
Laura
see you
was,
on the video?
Laura was in foster care with my 2 older brothers, so they were all young together. So Laura was always part of my family. I mean, I met her when I was 14. My oldest brother took me over because he thought it would be good for me to meet her, and I was like the first person that cut her hair. She had a big afro, and I was kind of learning to cut hair, so I started cutting her hair. She was a part of my family with everybody. There's pictures of her with my mom and my brother here on the mural, and she was just a staple in my life. And when my father died, she came to his funeral. When my brother died, she came to his funeral. And my mother died. So she was always part of my family. And my brother and sister are very sad today. They can't be here, but they're far away. One in Vegas, one in San Francisco. So their love is here. This is kind of like a charm bracelet of Laura's life. All of us being here, you know, it's like a bracelet, and this is all the love that she trickled along her life. And many are not here, but many are here. And I think this is just a testament of who Laura was, that we all are here to show up. Even those of us that are like not in great health, not in great physical condition, showed up anyway, no matter what. So I am grateful for Laura. I love you, Laura, and you'll always be in my heart. Love to you, Laura. And she was also my dog sitter. Over 20 years. Over 20 years. That was an incident that happened, but before that she had been my dog. She would come to my house, take care of my dogs, and you know, Laura was just like a sister to me, so anyway.
Well, I think of Laura's tenaciousness and her stubbornness is also part of what held her together and allowed her to have a community and be loved even with those qualities. And I always found her lovable amidst all that.
Well, she was stubbornly nice.
Exactly.
She was stubborn,
Yeah.
seriously.
And that everybody has some way that they survive, and Laura was a survivor.
Honest.
And her honesty.
She
Yeah.
was
Honest
Yeah.
Laura.
painfully honest.
But kind.
And it always rang true,
Yeah.
because it was honest.
And it wasn't hurtful, I mean, I remember,
no, right.
We're her cousins.
We're her cousins.
Michael's cousins.
and she was she exactly your age?
Yeah, we're a
Okay,
month
so,
apart.
so
yeah.
I'm, you know, almost 3 years younger, but she and I played together as children is what I remember. I mean, she'd come to our house and she was a little scary in some ways because she was so,
Yeah.
but it was all lovable. And as a kid, I think I just, you know, we played, that was it. I didn't think anything of it. When I was older, I was a little, wow, and then I realized it's not nasty, it's not hateful, it's
No.
not trying to get me, it's just, it is what it is. And I think she was unbelievably amazing
I
in
think so,
surviving with safety nets and love and people around her. And I live in San Francisco, so you know, we're her only real family, I guess, left except Michael. And I could not be here, but to meet all of you, I've heard of, you know, I
Yeah.
keep hearing
Yeah,
this
me
community,
too.
and Iris, I know, it's a few names I've heard over the years, but I'm just in awe of all of you. Thank you for taking care of her all these years.
Well,
She took care of us too.
I was just gonna say
You
that.
know, it's a two-way street. She was very giving, very giving.
And Laura had tremendous gratitude, because
Yeah.
anytime she and I had an interaction in which, you know, she felt me to be giving to her, she was always, you know, the gratefulness went back and forth, and you don't always
Yeah.
feel that with people.
Well, I'm gonna tell the story about why I like her so much on the phone lines, even before I knew her. There's this thing on the phone lines called the bashing zone, where you can say anything negative or nasty you want to say about anybody.
Twitter.
And, well, yeah, it's Facebook, Twitter, but it was even worse then.
Twitter.
It was even worse then because you could hear.
30 years before
Right.
Twitter.
She
His
would
voice,
she
right.
would never participate in the bashing zone. She would never say anything negative about anybody. If I said something that she didn't like, you know what she'd say? She'd say, "Oi, Gewalt." Oi, Gewalt. That was her. If she was upset, she didn't like something, "Oi, Gewalt." That's as negative as she could get. That was her kindness, that was her sweetness. She was a positive person, you know,
Yeah.
even though she was a little on the stubborn side, or a lot on the stubborn side, and she was definitely on the sedentary side. She was a positive person. She wanted things to be good. And not everybody is like that, and that needs to be appreciated.
Yeah, she had a lot of obstacles, and she learned how to go through her obstacles and
Absolutely.
be happy. And for as little as she had a very big life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
And she was strange. When you would meet her, there was a strangeness about her, but it was a strangeness that was kind of sticky. It would stick to you, and you kind of, you know. At first it was strange, but then it was after, like, she became part of you. She became part of it, you know, part of your life, part of your world. She was a big part of my world.
Yeah,
All my
you're
friends.
describing her perfectly.
Yeah, she would call me her poopsie.
Oh,
For years and years, I was her poopsie. Yeah.
Poopsie.
It was, yeah, the nickname like from foster care.
Well, I want to say one other thing too, which is, had it not been for Laura, we wouldn't have known Lenny.
Yeah, really.
No, we haven't heard from you yet, sir.
Yeah, you wrote a great card. I thank you very much. I've never had a card like that.
We'd
I
always,
feel like
we
we're
always
part
hear
of the
about
family.
Lenny this, Lenny that.
Really? Yeah. Yeah, so the thing about Laura is I met her in 2013. She was very good with dates, something like September 19th or something.
Yeah,
I'm sure she
5
did.
o'clock.
Now I don't know anybody's birthday, so she used to.
Right.
But anyways, what I remember about Laura, it was humor. We are always laughing, you know. I mean, I just sometimes I just laughed around her, you know, even when maybe she was taking it seriously. Like, but if that rings a bell with anybody, I'm not sure. But that's what I remember. I can always laugh, and it was I was very, very comfortable around her. It was like just extreme comfort, and you know, it was like no self-consciousness around her. And another thing is. She aside from my mom, she's the only one who loved me unconditionally. which is, you know, you can't expect that maybe once in your life with your mom, maybe, you know. But no, there it was again, twice. So that was a big blow to not have that. But yeah, that was just, we met, and she made it so comfortable that I remember, because I volunteer at the Children's Hospital like 3 times a week. And I would go after that, I would go to her place, and it would be like a decompression, you know. And,
How did you meet?
oh, Craigslist.
Craigslist. Craigslist.
Like a vault.
When she told
I'd have
us,
died when
she told, I said, are you crazy?
I
Do you know the kind of people that you meet in
That's what I told
Craigslist? You're crazy.
I didn't
But
even know
only
they were dating.
because of Hashem took care of both of you.
yeah, I actually saved saved our I saved almost everything. So
It's amazing.
and it was weird. I don't want to go in. That's a weird story.
When did you meet her? What year?
2013 in September.
Oh, I remember that.
I met you.
We were at her house and she told us what she did, and I'm like, oh my God, Laura, I don't believe you did that.
Oh yeah, you mean Craigslist is kind of scary.
Yeah,
But she was right in the area, so.
I'm sure that I was
Yes,
the only one
but
that's.
she could have gotten some kook.
But she did, but not a dangerous. Crazy is good, but not dangerous.
The,
Crazy but kind.
I
That's true,
remember
but
that
people, I
story.
mean, aren't very nice.
I remember that story now.
Oh, she told you that?
Well,
Well, that's, I mean, they did.
I used to,
How about you, Sharon? How did you know Laura?
I have lots of stories about Laura. I met Laura originally through Paul. He knew her from Vista Del Mar, and she was friends with him and his family and his brothers, and she prided herself on being the only woman who'd ever been intimate with all 3 Dana brothers.
Oh, goodness.
And she would never say they've been intimate.
Well, she would be a little more graphic, but
Especially that 2 of the brothers were
Very
gay.
close.
very close. I worked for a dating service for 14 years, and Laura used to tell me her little escapades with her dates. And she said she would invite them over to her apartment. I said, "Oh, Laura," I said, "you know, you could get somebody that could be dangerous, or, you know, stab you and kill you, and you know, whatever." And she said, "Oh, you know," and then she would tell me these stories about how someone would come to her door and she's like, "Oh, hi, are you Dave?" You know, "Yeah." "Oh, I left something in my car. I'll be right back." And he ran. And she goes, "and he never came back."
I wonder why.
Yeah.
And sometimes she would just go out to dinner with them or lunch or go to the House of Pies or whatever, but some of them turned out to be really strange. But she was really lucky because most of them either took off or were nice to her, and you know, but I guess when she met Lenny, she really got attached to him, and we would tease her and go, "Lenny, Lenny, Lenny," and she'd laugh, you know, because she just adored you. So I think Lenny brought a lot of joy to her life, and I'm so glad that she met you.
Her password's I love Lenny 62.
Aww.
Yeah, you for sure brought joy to Laura's life.
Honest
Sure.
Laura at AOL.
You brought her a sense of
Right, honest Laura,
that I don't think she ever felt before.
I have
That
to
what?
add, I have
You
to add
gave
one
her
more
a sense
thing.
of complete.
Oh, man,
She
she
made
never
her
had
feel complete.
Yeah. And you were like a constant, you know, support to her, like somebody that she felt close to, and,
Yeah, we talked about sometimes 3 times a day,
oh yeah.
maybe an hour and a half per day.
I'd say, "What are you gonna do?" "Oh, I have to go to Lenny's tomorrow." You know, "Oh, I'm going to Lenny's on Thursday." "Oh, I go to Lenny's every Wednesday."
Yeah, she was able, I was able to push her to walk like a mile and a half.
Wow.
You're the only one.
But I have to add something to Jeff's story. I don't know if you know this, but the story about the kitty cat, Misha. I was over at her house. This is when she had her couch up against where the windows were. And I happened to look, and I see the screen hanging open like that. I said, said, Laura, I said, your cat could fall out the window. She, well, first of all, cats land on their feet. And secondly, she knows better not to do that. And I said, well, she, you know, she could be sleeping one day and forget that she's up there and just turn over and I said, and a cat's not gonna land on their feet 5 stories up.
Actually, it did.
God.
Yeah, why not?
So she said, you know, oh, that's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. I'm not gonna do that. And I said, well, Laura, you know what? I could be wrong, and you could be right, and you'll never know. And I said, but if I'm right and you're wrong, you're risking your kitty's life, and your job as a cat owner is to protect your kitty and keep it safe from harm.
She had 6 cats though through the years, right?
Well, I only knew Sophia and Misha.
She had 6 cats. Henry, Nikki, Sophia.
But anyway, when she told me about that, I went, oh, I go, well, see, I hate being right, but this time I was. So when I
That
told
was,
her,
that was part of her stubbornness.
Yeah.
Part of her kind of, just kind
well,
of,
kind of like a little naivety too.
Kind of innocence,
Yeah.
I think.
But-
It wasn't deliberate, it was
But
kind of more
I
innocent.
did try to tell her about my beliefs of the afterlife and life after death and seeing people that you've known, you know, after you go. And she's like, that's fairy tales. And I said, well, you'll see. When you go, you'll see. You'll see Mark and you'll see Giselle and you'll see Bonnie and you'll see all these people.
She'll be in good hands.
So now she'll go, oh, Sharon was right again.
She's an innocent person.
Right, I think she couldn't have been worried about the cat safety because she lived her life not really being concerned about her own.
Oh, that's true.
You know,
She
I
is
mean,
in the
it
moment,
was,
she's very much in the moment.
yeah, very,
Well,
very
she told me
much-
she didn't have an imagination. When I bring up things that could happen in the future, she says, I can't imagine those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a safe, that's protected or.
No, she would tell me I was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Keep everything simple. She always wanted everything simple. That's why she'd be optimistic, because it's like, don't
Yeah.
put it out of your mind, don't think of, oh, I'm gonna give my phone number to this guy I just met, oh, on, you know, Craigslist. It was always like, just you don't wanna imagine too much. She was always that
But
way.
there was another side to her, she loved eating, she loved
Oh.
Tony Roma's, oh my god, Tony Roma's, her ribs and.
Oh, yeah.
When I think of her, she loved that, she loved the joy of life, the joy of eating. She loved animals, she
liked the
loved
gem
loved
show, too.
animals.
So did we. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's one thing I gotta talk about Laura. One of the things that really impressed me about her was she would watch animal shows, and I would watch them too. And every time a doggy would be on or a kitty would be on a commercial, we go, you know. And we go, now, so every time I see a cat or a dog on a commercial, it's, or a bird, it's just, look at the kitty. No matter what, and it could be a movie,
I have a bird story with Laura. Somebody gave me a cockatiel, and I said, oh, what's the cockatiel's name? Because I don't know, my ex-girlfriend had some stupid name for it. I just call him shithead. I don't. That's gonna
After all,
change.
that's what they do.
So Laura came over to see my bird, and she was holding him and talking to him. She had him on her finger, and I said, I'm trying to think of a name for him, Laura. And she goes, I don't know, he's so mellow and yellow. And I went, oh, that's perfect. She goes, what, mellow yellow? I said, no, Donovan. I said, that's who sings that song. I said, oh, thank you for helping me name him. And I had that bird, he was probably 5 or 6 when I got him. I had him for 5 years. And I was so sad because he learned to whistle and he would do wolf whistles while I was vacuuming. And I always remembered Laura had helped me name him. So that was kind of cool. And she was so mellow and yellow. But she liked all my animals. She liked my kitty, she liked my birds. And I took her to a bird store one time and she went like this to a cockatoo. And the cockatoo put his head down and she was ready to scratch him and he like chomped on her finger and she's like bleeding. I'm like, oh my God, Laura. So we had to put a Band-Aid on it, Neosporin and everything. Like that bird got her.
You know,
But she just had so much love for them, she never even thought about anything.
Well, sometimes with animals, she'd be so needy, she'd come on
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
aggressively.
Yeah, she would always want to hold my cat, one of my cats, and my cat did not want to be held. And Laura, please don't do, no, I gotta, and you know, I mean, She had to hold the cat.
Yeah, I guess I became her cat. She never got a cat afterwards. But in the last year, she started talking about getting a cat. Or the year before, since she was okay.
And she'd always talk me into getting one until finally I did last summer. She was so happy for me.
Well, speaking of stubborn, we went to the shelter one time, and she was looking for a cat. She says, this is what I want. Has to be 2 years or younger, a female, and short hair. I said, okay. So we were walking through looking at the cats. There was this one cat, I think it was whitish with some gray on hers, and it was pretty. And it was like, putting its, paw out, and Laura put her finger on its paw, and it kind of pulled her finger in and was like licking her hand. I go, Laura, this is the kitty, 2 years, short hair, female. And she goes, no, I could tell it's declawed when it bit by my hand.
Oh, wow.
And I said, well, you live on the 5th floor, I mean, it's not like that's gonna make a difference. She's, no, I don't believe in declawing. I said, but you're not the one who's declawing it. And I said, it's already declawed. She goes, no, I don't believe in decline, I'm not gonna get it. I go, Laura, look, I said, I don't believe in child abuse, but if there was a child and I wanted to adopt a kid, I wouldn't let that interfere. She goes, no, you're not gonna change my mind. I'm gonna get another cat. I want a declawed cat. I went, okay, but that's how stubborn she didn't like my reasoning with her. So she said I would try to talk her into stuff. So she was stubborn, but I had to respect her opinion because that was gonna be her cat. I'm your social worker? No, that doesn't sound like, oh.
Yeah, right.
But I feel like one when I used to work with my members of the dating service, because I'd have to counsel them.
She did have opinions.
Yeah,
Well,
she loved Misha.
I knew Laura, I met her in March of March of 1971 when I was 18 years old. We go back a long time. Beverly Doreen
Oh,
now.
here you go. Okay, you guys like the same music?
Yeah. And if I met her in the hamburger home, because I left my mother, I only had 3 more months to graduate, high school. My mother, I went to live with my boyfriend, but my mother made me, it's all a long story, but I couldn't live. Hollywood High School wouldn't let me in school unless I lived in a home or private school. I was a boyfriend, so I had to leave. And so I went to the hamburger home and I met Laura. And I continued high school. I graduated in 71 from Hollywood High. Anyway, I became instant friends with Laura. She was so friendly and outgoing. And we made friends for 50 years. And I knew something was wrong when I called their house, last summer, and the phone was disconnected. And then I found out, I called the manager, and I looked it up on Google, the manager, and she wouldn't give me information. I wanted Michael's phone number or Lenny's, she wouldn't give me any information. I thought maybe she had COVID-19, but I found out that, that Michael had come to pick her up and take her things out of her apartment. When I found out that, I don't know if I get that COVID-19. I kept calling Kaiser and Hollywood, but I couldn't get a hold of her. And then finally, I left messages on a machine, I sent her a card, and finally, I found out from Lenny that she was sick, I found out on Easter Sunday. And I went through a severe depression, because I'm bipolar, and, I was in bed for 35 days. Remember, Debbie?
Yeah.
I didn't watch the Academy Awards. I didn't watch anything. I just stayed in bed depressed, and I haven't seen my psychiatrist. I'm going to see him on Tuesday. But the fact of the matter is, I understood Laura because we were both bipolar, and we had a lot of problems mentally. But my problem started at 25. Her problem started much younger. But the thing is, Laura understood me and I understood her. And every time Laura would get depressed, she'd come live with me. And I'd have her live with me for 2 or 3 or 4 months, and I'd take care of her. But the last time she was depressed, she stayed in bed a lot like I do when I get depressed. And the only thing I didn't like about Laura was the fact that she put me down because I didn't have any computer skills.
Yikes.
No computer safety.
I went to college, I got everything else, I got a bachelor's, I have a AA, a high school diploma, but I never learned a computer, because I went to school before the computer came out in the seventies, so I said, what I need a computer for? I said, I can always, if I wanna mail something, I just go to the post office and mail it, I put it out in my mailbox. I wanna talk to somebody, here's the telephone. If I wanna find something else, here's the TV, I said, I don't need a computer. But she'd always put me down, I can't understand, want to learn the computer. So that was our last argument, right, Debbie? And I said, well, let's go to the Thai restaurant. She said, I said, okay, and we feel we couldn't go, but then I got mad at her because she said, well, tell me what's playing at the Lobster Theater. And I said, why don't you look it up? I said, well, you live right across the street from it. And then we canceled the ride, remember, Debbie?
Yeah.
I got mad, I said, put me down on the computer. That was the main thing I had against her, but I loved her very much. She was considered one of my best friends. She was always there for me. See, I'm a very humanitarian person, and I used to let the homeless live with me when I lived, for 13 years in a mobile home. I had a very large 3-bedroom mobile home, and I got evicted from the management because I was always letting homeless people live. And Laura took me in, when I got evicted in 1999, September of 99. And I lived with her until I got on my feet.
Yeah, she did that.
Well, she did that a lot. You guys know Hillary?
And then you went to live with
Oh,
me.
sure, right.
I went to live with you, that broke my leg. Yes, so that was very bad. And Laura, Laura was special because it's just one thing about Laura being an atheist. I don't know why she was, but my mother tried to talk to her about religion, but she said it was a fairy tale. Heaven was a fairy tale. I said, why did your mother send me these Christmas cards? My mother was Catholic, and when, I don't know, Michael, are you an atheist?
That's not a yes or no answer,
Oh, sorry.
but the point is.
But you was raised that way?
Yeah, I
Yes, that was the point I was gonna make.
Yeah.
My mom
Our
was-
parents were very radically left. And opiate of the masses, all of that stuff.
Aren't a lot of musicians too, they were musicians, right?
Yeah, her dad was a saxophone.
Right, so,
Right?
Saxon clarinet.
What? Okay.
Okay, I want to share now, if that's okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, the year was 2005. I had been calling the Hollymont home for almost 2 years. And by chance or by fate, I met Laura by the elevator.
Sorry. We just started off.
At least it's musical.
I should get that.
That was a good player shot.
Laura was quick to pull the heavy door, and I hurried to slide the other heavy door, get inside and hold it for Laura. She smiled and asked, which floor? I smiled back and said, 5th. Oh, really? I'm on the 5th floor, 512. What unit are you? 507? How come I haven't seen you before? How long have you lived here? Are you Jewish? Me too. You remind me of my cousin Nina.
Oh my God.
You're both good Jewish girls. When is your birthday?
Right.
Laura always made it a point to know her friends' birthdays, memorize them, and call them on that date.
Yeah.
That's how it started. Our friendship blossomed and flourished. We had hard times and good times, and we were there for each other when we could. Laura always spoke honestly, sometimes a little too loud. Laura accepted and appreciated different people from all walks of life, even marginalized ones. She had an open mind and open heart. Laura only did what she wanted to do, and if she wanted to love someone, there was no stopping her. That's all. Thanks for listening.
I'm gonna have to go in a few minutes, my daughter's gonna pick me up, but I just wanted to comment about Laura.
I knew Laura in 1964 to 1966, when she lived at Vista Del Mar, when she was in College 31. Vista was going through a major transition period. It was originally a home for kids, and Laura was in the transition period when it was becoming a treatment facility. And what they did is they isolated the cottages, which were two-story cottages that originally had 10 boys and 10 girls on each side of the cottage, and they isolated them and made Cottage 31 and 33 all girls. And they moved 32, 34, 36 as the boys. And Laura was there, and she was one of the younger kids of 31, and I remember her being very jovial at times, but also could be obstinate and kind of resistant, but she followed the rules. And for the most part, I think Laura was able to do well for the most part of Vista because it had a routine. And the routine was the same, and Laura knew the routine, Monday through Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. And she knew what time she was going to get up. She knew when she had to do breakfast crew. She knew when she had to do evening crew and she'd do the dishes. She knew what time she had to get ready to go to school, what time she had to be at the school bus, what time she had to be ready to be picked up, and what time was homework time, what time was bedtime, and there was no arguments. It was pretty much cut and dry. Laura, for the most part, had a few friends, but I think a lot of the time she kind of spent by herself. I don't remember her being in a clique with any of the girls at Vista. Of course, this is over a 2-year period. The woman counselor that worked with Laura is living in Arizona, and I just sent her a picture of
Is that
Laura.
Mrs. Bryant? Mrs. Bryant?
Oh, Mrs. Bryant was the house mother.
She used to talk about her.
Yeah, but Mrs. Bryant wasn't her house mother. In College 31, it was another woman. Bryant was in 30, originally in 30, in 33, 34, and then she may have moved to 33 to be with the girls.
Wow. I wish I'd known you were here earlier. I'm fascinated by your teenage years. I didn't know her then.
Yeah.
You were in Vista?
Yeah, I worked there as a counselor, and I'd also grown up there. So
You must have known my brothers, Mark and Serge Dana.
Dana, say Serge?
Yeah, Serge.
Serge Dana, yes.
She was very close to Serge in
Yeah,
Vista.
Serge was in College 32
Right.
at that time, but that was years before Laura got there. In fact, Dana was there, I think, in the
They
late
met in
50s.
Vista. They met in Vista.
But maybe they met at a reunion.
They made a
No, they
reunion.
met living in Vista.
Okay.
Yeah.
He would know.
No,
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know. I don't think Serge,
That's how
I
they
don't
met.
remember Serge being at Vista at the same time Laura was.
Serge
could have
was
been.
there in 66.
Yeah, Serge, well, Dana
65,
was,
66.
yeah, Dana, let's see, Serge was, I don't remember Serge being there at that time, but Laura definitely was there in College 31,
Yeah.
in 64 through 66 while I was working there. She didn't like to go outside and do exercises or stuff most of the house.
What
And
a
she kind
surprise.
of she was friendly, but also she could be distant with kids. And sometimes she would test the rules, as most teens would, but she basically followed along and got along with most of the kids. She didn't get herself in any major trouble with the resident director or the chief operating officer or anything like that. So she basically was an okay kid for the most part. So that's all I had to share about Laura. And thank you for allowing me to
Yeah.
part there.
sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You wanna see a picture when she was?
Yeah, that picture is
Yeah, I took a picture of Laura. But she had, when she was at Vista, her hair was parted in the center, it was shorter, it was like one of the pictures up there. And that was more like Laura, that's what time you remember.
Yeah. Those are
Oh my God.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I forgot all about that.
That's right.
Wherever, and they were playing a Beatles song, Laura would burst into song.
And she knew the year and the album. Yeah, that was the thing we bonded on.
Oh, yeah, she
But
loved
she knew the
music,
year
she
and the
loved
album.
So she would always listen to Beatles.
Right.
And just start singing along.
Yeah, that's
Your
true.
dad
Even
wearing
in the
neighbor
middle of the
shorts.
market or music.
Yeah, she
store.
had a great voice.
Yeah.
She always
Lord,
sang.
I love her.
What was after this stuff?
Like having the phone.
Our wedding present was the album of Manners and Morris.
I like that. I kept listening to it all the time.
She gave this.
Until they finally.
A match. No.
This was before CCTV. Yeah, right, she was,
This is in the middle of the last century.
yeah, right, really.
Imagine.